What's going on, everybody? Your boy Reggie G here. Thank you for joining me for episode number 4, which is going to be on wanting what other people have. Tonight's episode is essentially going to be about how we compare ourselves to others and all the dangers that come along with that, the mindset that comes along with that, and the honesty that comes with dealing with comparing ourselves to others. So I'm going to do things a little bit differently on this one. I'm going to start with a verse that I think kind of illustrates a little bit about what I'm going to talk about, and then I'm going to dive deeper into the things that kind of encompass the dangers of comparing ourselves to others and how easy it is to fall victim to this mindset. So Exodus 20:17 says this: "You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his male servant, or his female servant, or his ox, or his donkey, or anything that is your neighbor's." I'm going to read that one more time. Exodus 20:17. "You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his male servant, or his female servant, or his donkey, or his ox, or anything that is your neighbor's." So the reason why I wanted to start out with that is because although Exodus, which is in the second chapter of the Bible, is the Old Testament, it still rings true today. So for us here in the Western world, we might not have ox or donkeys or male servants or female servants. At least I'm not lucrative. I'm not wealthy enough to have any servants, at least not yet. However, we are in the position where we do have wives and husbands and cars and houses and jobs and materialistic things like purses and watches and things of that nature. And these things are very easy to see. But there are also things that I think we compare ourselves to that are not so easily seen. It might be someone's monetary status or their wealth or the relationships that they have, maybe even their jobs, things like that. And I think those things are just as easy to compare as the materialistic things we see every day. It might even be someone's physique. Maybe someone is comparing themselves to someone else because they have the physical stature that someone else wants. Maybe they're in really good shape and they envy or covet the shape that someone's in, or maybe the way someone's hair looks, or just really anything. But I think it goes really deep, because it goes a lot deeper than that, because it's not just on the outside that you see. It's really, I think you want that level of satisfaction. To just break things down, a few years ago, someone really close to me, kind of like a brother to me, really, really, really good friend, seemed like they had it going on. And I'm sure all of us have someone like this. Maybe it might not necessarily be a friend. It might be a relative, or it might be a coworker, or, just someone you know. And it seemed like he just had it going on. He had the perfect job, making great money. Aside from that, he had the wife. They had the big house. They had the fancy cars. And what was even worse is the fact that he didn't even have a college degree. And, looking in the mirror, I had the college degrees. Not just degree, I have degrees. Not to mention, I work hard, and, you just feel like, everything that you do, nobody else does as good as you or as much as you, right? And it just never seems like you get that break. And the reality was, although this person that was really near and dear to me seemed like they had a lot going on, it didn't necessarily pan out that way. The relationship that they were in ended up falling apart. The house, the big fancy house, ended up being taken away in the divorce. The nice fancy cars eventually couldn't be paid for. And, even the, upstanding kids and beautiful kids and all that kind of stuff, that ended up going by the wayside, and ended up having, counseling just for all the things that came along with the loss of everything else. And it kind of brings me back to a saying that Ray Lewis said, that everybody you think has it good, it's not always good. And I think that's the misconception we have, is that we think that everything on the outside really is as true as we see it, when it's not always the case. And then, although it might really be good, it doesn't necessarily mean that it'll last forever. How many of us have had friends that had the picture perfect relationship? I'm talking about, you didn't think that these people would break up for anything in the world. I mean, not just celebrities, but I mean people you really know. I'm not talking about people you go to church with, people you work with, good friends of yours, family members, you name it. And before you know it, they're not together anymore. Or finds out that they haven't been happy for a long time. And you're so blown away at the fact that what you thought was reality was really a show. And I think that kind of boils down to the common theme that I have, which is when you compare yourself to others, you're essentially putting yourself in their experience. And we do the same thing in the workplace. How many of us believe that we are the ones that deserve that raise? We're the ones that deserve that promotion. Or relationships. We're the ones that deserve that girl or that guy, or, anything along those lines. Because we compare ourselves to someone else's experience. And it doesn't necessarily add up that way. How many people that are single look at all these other people that are in a relationship, and you're like, well, they don't deserve that guy. They don't deserve him as a husband, because they're not treating him right. If I was his wife, I would do this. And the guys do the same thing. Why is she with him? He doesn't even love her like she thinks that he loves her. He cheats on her, or, he does all these things to her, and, she might not realize that, that individual that she's really with doesn't appreciate her or doesn't value her. So, in essence, you put yourself in the position to think that if I was her husband, I would do these things for her. I would treat her like she deserves to be treated. But in reality, that's not your wife. And for the ladies, that's not your husband. But we put so much energy and effort into thinking that those things should be ours, that we almost start to envy, or we start to covet those individuals. And that's the scary part, because it doesn't stop there. I came up with a theory a few years ago, and the theory is sometimes we need to let a fantasy remain a fantasy. And what I mean by that is, it's just like when you want something materialistic, or a person, or a job, or anything something along those lines. You want something so bad, and then you finally get it, and you realize it wasn't as good as what you thought it was. And I talk to people that, they're in a relationship or been in a relationship for a long time, whether it be a marriage or, a job or anything along those lines, and they want out for whatever reason. They think the grass is greener, whatever you want to call it. And they leave the job, or they break up with that person, or sometimes they don't even break up, they just go after what they think they really want. And then when they get it, it's not even close to what they thought. It's only just a temporary sense of satisfaction, and it's never really long term. Sometimes they leave that job that they've been at for so long because they wanted something else, and they essentially throw away a career for something that they think they really want, but isn't what they really want. And what's worse is when it belongs to someone else. I had a really good friend of mine, married to a, pretty decent woman, had a, relationship, had a house, had a lot of things going, really, really strong, founded relationship, and left for a temporary sense of lust. But the woman he went after was also married. So for that temporary satisfaction you don't even just lose your one relationship, but now you interrupt someone else's relationship and totally destroy it too. And what seems to be meaningless is so harmful sometimes. And you just got to be careful, because once you start comparing yourself to others, you're missing out on the bigger picture, which I believe is it's not your journey. When you start comparing yourself to others, you miss out on the road that you're on, because you're looking at somebody else's road. It's just like driving down the road, but you're looking at somebody else's lane. And what happens to your lane? You end up swerving into somebody else's lane because you're not focused on your own. You're looking at how somebody else is driving. You know, and I don't think that a lot of people think about that sometimes. And I know sometimes I fall victim to it myself. But that's the struggle in comparing ourselves to others, is we seem to think that it's easier driving in their lane. Sometimes we think it's easier living their life. Sometimes as an employee, we think it's easier to be the boss until we become the boss. And then guess what? We want to go back to being the employee, right? Remember when you were a kid and you just wished and hoped and you just prayed, man, if I could just be an adult, I can do this. I could drive a car. I could get my own house. I don't have to listen to what my parents say. And then what happens? You get out there, you get a job, you get a car, you get a house. And then what's the first thing you think? Man, I wish I could just be a kid again. Gosh, if I only had to just worry about going outside and playing and going to school and eating and hanging out, life will be so much easier. But we spend so much time comparing ourselves to others and thinking we could do a better job that we miss out on the journey that we're already on, because we want what someone else has, or what we think someone else has. And we all do it. We all fall victim to it. And sometimes we find out too late, and we lose what we have, or in this case, what we had, because we want what someone else has, or what we think someone else has. And for anyone listening to this, I hope you're getting something out of this. Take pride and value in your own journey instead of trying to live someone else's. I can think about it just earlier today. I heard a story of a guy that was in the military for just a short time. I think he maybe did just one term, and he got out to pursue his dreams. Shortly after he did his first tour. And the first thing I could think of is, how could this guy who has the opportunity to be in the military and have so many opportunities to travel and do these things, just give it up for chasing his dream, where he literally had to sing on the street corner just to live, bounce around from bars to try to entertain people and do that. But that's what made him happy. Because in my mind, if I was able to get into the military, I would have loved to have that opportunity. But because I wasn't able to do that, I looked at him, as less of a person because of the decision he made. But again, that was his journey, and my journey was different. So, in essence, I wanted to kind of just wrap things up by saying this. When we look at someone else's journey as our journey, we miss out on some of the stops we're supposed to make, because we're not focused on the things that God has really put in our path. And there's nothing more devastating than missing out on something when you had no reason to miss out on it. You had all the possibilities, all the chances to be able to take advantage of, because it was designed specifically for you. The woman that you're with, designed specifically for you. The guy that you're with, designed specifically for you. But there's nothing worse than taking advantage of it or not valuing that person and then losing them. Just like they always say, you never really know what you got until it's gone. And life's the same way. Sometimes we don't realize what we have until we no longer have the opportunity to get it. And for those of us that are fortunate enough to be able to have someone else in our lives, and they might not seem like the perfect person, they might not be the perfect person, but they're perfect for you. And guess what? You're not the perfect person either. But whoever is lucky enough to be with you, they have to learn to love you just like you had to learn to love them. But if the relationship isn't right, I urge you, do what you have to do to make it right. Because guess what? If you go with someone else, you're going to have to learn who they are all over again anyway. And guess what? They're not going to be perfect either. They're going to have downfalls. They're going to have their trials. They're going to have their past experiences, and they're not going to be perfect. You're going to have to get over those just like they're going to have to get over yours. But you have to continue to learn to not look at someone else's journey as yours, because it's not. They don't have the same experiences as you have. Might have similar ones, but not the exact same ones. And there are some things that you need to just learn. And sometimes that's the fun part about life. You can't just get it instantly. We live in an instant microwave society where everything just seems like it's just given to us at just a whim. You can order something. You don't even have to wait in line anymore. You can just have it delivered to you. But everything in life isn't like that. And that's where that growing takes place, that development takes place. And that's what we have to really appreciate. Because when you get something instantly, you tend to not value it. Because you didn't really need to work for it. But when you get something because you worked for it and it took time, that's when you value it. Look at any great work. Any great work. Anything that you've developed, anything you've designed, anything you've actually witnessed, like a painting, something that took hours, sometimes days or even weeks to paint. A creation, maybe it was a statue. Look at a house. A prefab house is nice. You can put it together in just a short amount of time. But something that takes a significant amount of time, you tend to appreciate more. It just means so much more. And a relationship's the same way. How you look at life's the same way. So, just wanted to wrap up with that. Hope you, those of you that have listened, got something out of it. And I really appreciate that. If you're listening on whatever medium that you can, please let me know what you think. This is episode number 4. There are 3 other episodes prior to this. Please let me know what you think. And you guys have a great night. One love and God bless.